it's because of two dates, 1971 and 1974. 1971 was, of course, the Nixon shock, which was effectively the transition from a dollar that made reference to gold to a dollar that didn't, which is fiat currency. And 1974 is when Richard Nixon's presidential career came to an end. Of course, in that year, he resigned after Watergate. And so what I mean by that is that the two underlying currents behind today's news, I would contend at home, are effectively a dollar story and a fiat dollar story. And on the other hand, the centralization of presidential authority and power that Nixon attempted and failed at, but that it seems Trump so far has had a better run at.
Right. Nixon said, if the president does it, that means it's not illegal. And Trump has certainly said that in various ways over the past 8 years. What about Nixon's resignation? I mean, it seems that Trump has gone the other way, right? Nixon was caught doing something illegal and kicked and screamed and left. And Trump has been sort of kicking and screaming and turning it into something that was okay. If you look, for example, at January 6th.
Yes, January 6th was egregious, and yet it stands. And I think that hints at how if Watergate happens today, nobody would blink, right? I mean, somebody busting a safe open and lying about it simply wouldn't make the news.
Not even blink. I mean, they would celebrate it, right?
Well, they probably would, depending on their political views. I would caution everybody, including myself, because I'm so guilty of this, of always sort of looking to Trump as the independent variable in all cases.
Well, I want to jump in for a moment, because I was just thinking as you were talking, what you were saying, is it more about the U.S. public has changed and that they wouldn't balk at a Watergate today versus what they did during the Nixon administration? Does it say more about the U.S. citizens at large, or many of them, versus an individual president or individual administration?
Well, ultimately, American politics are a sub-function of the American people, as you rightly point out. And every couple of years we have a major election, and the views of the people are thereafter represented in our government via those elections. So yes, I would say that the American people have moved from, for want of a better word, a puritanical view of the world to something a little less puritanical in, say, the last 20 or so years. But it's also a function of the Supreme Court, because as Matt just mentioned, when Trump says that his own version of if the president does it, it's not illegal, the Supreme Court has effectively said that for him too, when it ruled that anything within his official remit is not subject to prosecution. So there's a shift, I think, in the presidency, the people, and the Supreme Court.
You know, I wonder how you feel about in a sense, the state and local tax deduction debate. As an outsider looking at the balance that the U.S. Founders intended between state and federal power. My reading of this, because admittedly I don't like paying this much money, is that it's federal overreach, undue federal overreach to cap the state and local tax deduction, because they're impinging on states' rights to sort of taxation autonomy. But no one else seems to talk about this at all. Do you see the power shifting to Washington and away from state capitals?
I do, as a broad theme, and I know you enjoy paying taxes, Matt. So I'm sorry to hear that's an ongoing problem for you. Yes, there is a centralization of power in the American body politic that is one theme that I think Nixon introduced, perhaps, and that people like Dick Cheney tried to theorize with his vice presidency and the unitary executive. But there's another theme pushing back at that, which is, as you just mentioned, states' rights, liberty, individual rights, and so on. And these two strands are bumping up against each other constantly in American history. But it seems that in 2025, they're bumping into each other with ever more friction.